I am James Harry.
I'm Sarah Joanne Wright.
I was born May 13th, 1992.
February 17th, 1991.
I am the oldest, absolutely the most mature, paving the way for the rest of the crew.
It was just me and my older brother, John.
And I know that my parents prayed persistently for us as kids.
And that really built up a lot of my disciplines and my faith.
We were always together as a family.
I got really into wedding planning in like 4th grade. My childhood best friend that's in the wedding, Lauren, would come over to my house. She would say that I would be a little bit more bossy because I would take on the role as the wedding coordinator. And we would just kind of like go through the magazine planning out our weddings. Who would be in the wedding, who the groomsmen would be, who the bridesmaids would be, potential honeymoon destinations, what I wanted the ceremony to look like. But I did have a note card as well about characteristics of the potential groom.
I did date, but not a lot of different people.
I didn't really date anyone in college.
From high school all the way through college.
I probably pride myself too much in being an independent person.
I wasn't really expecting whatever came next. I was kind of doing my thing in law school. I came home for Christmas break. Christmas break is a lot of together time with my family, a lot of together time.
I still remember when Mom told me about James.
My parents were hanging around and they went to some mixer event one night.
They had flown down for my master's graduation. I had defended my thesis and it was a big part of my graduate program.
They come back from this mixer event and they said, "Hey James, we've got something really interesting for you. We need you to look into this." And I'm thinking, okay, here we go.
Mom was way more concerned about telling me that they had a prospective guy that was going to take me out on a date over Christmas break.
100% opposed to them like being involved in that part of my life at all.
But she couldn't tell me his name and I couldn't look him up because I needed to wait for him to pursue me.
And luckily for me, they'd gotten her number for me.
So the whole weekend it was like, yay, Sarah's graduating, yay. And Mom was like so enthralled with the idea of James Harry potentially calling me.
I was absolutely horrified that they were trying to set me up. And I should say it wasn't just my mom. My dad was equally involved in this.
I pulled Dad aside and I was like, are you concerned that I'm not gonna find anyone? Like, are you and Mom legitimately worried? And he's like, no, my gosh, your mom started running her mouth and she thought this would be a great thing. So he's like, just go on one date. You don't have to marry the kid.
She'd been pulling her strings and doing her part, and now it was my job to step up. She was not logical about it at all.
I think at that point I was open-minded to being set up.
I didn't have to marry this girl. I just had to make contact.
So James waited until the 11th hour of my Christmas break.
I was pretty belligerently against it.
I totally messed with my mom throughout the break, being like, oh my gosh, some unknown number texted me.
For 2 weeks, I kind of ignored them. And
he eventually texted me. I remember it being like super late.
Hi Sarah Wright, this is James Harry. Our parents have been up to some scheming, and so I just wanted to say hello.
I was like, oh, this is the boy that I've been waiting on and I'm driving back to Mississippi in 2 days.
Hi James Harry, it's so nice to hear from you.
And I remember being a little bit annoyed with him
because I waited until the last minute.
We have so much content to cover, like we do not need to be doing this over a text message.
She was leaving town and I was leaving town, which was probably for the best.
But he ended up like having these like really long text threads with me and I was almost like, what are we doing? Like, why are we texting about this? Like, we could have totally had this conversation in person.
So we met up back where I was going to school at the time in Indianapolis.
I was like, fine.
So fun fact, Sarah was supposed to meet me around lunchtime and then she was like 2 hours late.
I was not packed. I was not prepared at all.
She was going back to Mississippi.
James quickly learned that I am not a punctual person and I'm not always great at communicating. And I'm definitely, in the past, not always the best texter.
That's pretty standard operating procedure I've come to learn.
anyone in my entire life is like, yes, this is so true.
And so I had to switch restaurants, found a new restaurant.
I didn't know what he looked like. I truly honored my mom's word and I didn't look him up.
She walks in, she kind of looked like a deer in the headlights.
He got right up, he was sitting on a bench.
I think we probably both looked like that a little bit, like I can't believe this is happening.
Really well dressed, which is very James, very stylish, very put together.
I remember thinking like, wow, she has big, beautiful blue eyes.
Got up, had the best manners, like, hi, I'm James Harry, how are you?
She had a really big smile.
Right from there, you could just tell that he was just like low-key, humble.
She was very interesting to talk to and really fun.
But that's the epitome of James, is his patience, his flexibility.
A very patient person.
He does so well with it.
The lunch lasted 3 hours.
But I'm like over here eating a cheeseburger and he's eating like a grilled chicken salad.
Leaving that lunch, I thought, it was just really comfortable.
I left the lunch with James and I was like, I really liked him. Like, he was a good guy.
I gave her a hug and off she went. It was like freezing in the middle of January.
But it's also kind of like, based on our circumstances of life, like he was in the throes of law school. I still had 2 more years of grad school.
I thought, I'd kind of like to talk to her some more.
But I remember praying on my way back to Mississippi, and it was just kind of one of those things like, Lord, like if this is something that not is meant to be, but if this is something that you have in your plans, and if this is something that I need to be more committed to or open-minded to, I want him to take the action. I want him to pursue me.
I texted her later that evening, and I wanted to make sure that she'd gotten to where she was going that day.
He had texted me like, hope you made it back safe, blah, 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 and then that kind of like opened up the door.
Our relationship early on was really all through text. Our schedules were so crazy. That's how we had to stay in touch. And it's like, oh, what are you doing right now? Oh, I'm doing, it was just a lot of back and forth.
And I would just be dying laughing. Like he would send like the perfect meme or like the perfect little GIF or something that was like super appropriate.
She'd just share about what she was doing in that day.
And I think I, again, was like one step ahead, like, why aren't we like having phone conversations?
Not long after that, I started getting phone calls from her.
And I was like kind of nervous about it.
I'd never really gotten calls from a girl that, on an ongoing basis like that.
And he called me back and I like strategically missed it. And he was like, hey, sorry, I went to Topgolf over in Ohio with some friends. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
We'd have fun conversations.
I think we always had something to talk about or something to carry on or piggyback off of.
I invited her up and I said, hey, I know this is really crazy. I know it's a long way to travel, but we've got this thing called Barrister's Ball. It's basically lawyer prom.
And my mom was dying. She's like, oh my gosh, we'll pay for the plane ticket. Like, what do we need to do? Like, what can we? And I'm like, okay.
And she was like, I would love to. I'll book a ticket.
He planned probably one of the most thought out, well-planned dates ever.
I had a friend who worked at the State House at the time, and I said, hey, she likes history and stuff. I'd really like to show her our State House. So,
and then what did I leave all on your dad's car?
Oh, glitter everywhere.
Glitter was everywhere from my dress. Sorry, Steve.
You really hated to see her go after that.
And we just had a bunch of stuff to talk about.
And I just started to realize like what a quality, I knew what a quality person she was from all these conversations.
His work ethic, his humility, his patience, his kindness, all of those things just continued to be evident during our time together.
I said, I'm really interested in seeing where this goes. I really like you and I'd like to date you.
He knew a lot sooner than I knew that I was the one or whatever.
I think after a certain amount of time, like this is someone that I want to be with.
And I also hadn't really seriously dated anyone, so I wasn't sure what the timeline looked like or how that all worked.
Her family went through some pretty serious times, and I just saw the way, like, when she was at her valleys in life, just the way she clung to God and the way her family clung to each other and to God.
Just seeing like the stability and the character, like I feel like those are the times where you really genuinely see what a person's about.
I probably would have popped the question even 6 months earlier if I could have.
We had talked about marriage like way early on, just kind of like timelines, probably like 6 to 8 months in. And then we really didn't rehash it.
I think we both knew.
I had assumed it was coming.
She'd never really been in our courthouse here, so I was like, oh, well, that would be an interesting place because it's absolutely beautiful.
I was not expecting it on Friday.
We had a judge give us the full tour of the place.
I was like, there is no way James can survive an entire work day and then like ask the biggest question of his life. I'm like, there's no way.
And I had my people in place to help me get set up while she wasn't looking.
When we were pulling into the courthouse, his sister's car was there and he yanks the car the other way because he's like, oh dear gosh, it's JC's car. Sarah's gonna know what's happening. Then he turned to the security person and was like, now, Sarah, we're here for the tour. Like, she just knows about the tour. And so I'm like, okay, why are we doing this much prefacing?
At the end of the tour, the judge had to take a mysterious phone call.
And I'm like, yes, totally. Like, we are small people. You are doing big things. Like, yes.
So I took her up to the very top underneath the big dome.
And once we walked up the first half of the stairs, James's tone like shifted.
You know, it was all set up with pictures and roses.
And he was like, la la la. And then it was like, he was in game face mode, like, now's the time.
That's where I stopped and asked her to marry me. I'm like in the middle of my like heartthrob moment on my getting ready to go down on a knee, and she's like, was this all here before?
Like, where did this come from?
Was
Like,
this
what?
here? I don't remember. Were we on this floor?
And James is like, please, let's just get through
I was
this.
like, focus.
I'm like, oh, okay, continue.
I was moderately emotional, but I wasn't like sobbing.
Do you remember
don't really
everything I said?
No.
I said a lot of stuff. It took probably 5 minutes to get it all out.
No.
Not that, okay.
I think I was more excited because we never said I love you before, and there were times where getting closer to it, I was like, you wanted to say it or you were about to say it, and then you're like, oh no, we're not saying that yet. Does he say it first? So there were definitely some tears. I think maybe somewhere on his part.
I try not to be, but I think sometimes it's hard to avoid.
And I don't think they wanted to give us credit for it, and they won't give us credit, which is fine.
They were like, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 months at first seems so fast, but now I'm like, okay, I'm over it. We have everything planned. Let's get married so we can do life together.